Hey, Jay and Transitors. Welcome back to another episode of Jay and Transit Lost Files. I can't wait for you all to tune into this episode with my friend and transformational coach, Heather Loyal Lawrence. I'm not even going to introduce this too much because just to say that it's timely is kind of like continuing to hammer a nail on the head and pound it to the ground. I cannot wait for you all to fawn over this episode the way that I have. So, see you on the other side.
How are you?
I'm really glad to hear your voice. I'm really glad to be able to do this, whatever it is. And I'm so popular. I just finished an interview with some kids and
Did
um
you?
and someone else that I know from Momentum. And I was like, "Ooh, look at me." Interview. It's like it's my future life.
It is. I thought this is what you were manifesting.
Yes, girl.
TED Talk,
Get
all
me
of the
wrong.
things.
I'm with it. I'm totally, and be paid for my time, my attention. Oh yes, I'm so with it. Mhm.
Well, I agree. I agree. I think the paid part has to come soon.
Yo, absolutely.
How are you?
So you're in Mexico, yes? I'm
I
so that
am.
yes. I can't wait. I took a meeting on the beach in Antigua and I thought of you and I was like, this is how this gets to be.
Yes.
I was like, I get it.
The-
I get it. You know,
yes.
I don't
Yes.
need I don't need a pandemic for this to be the situation. Let's go.
I agree. I totally agree. I am fighting not to have to go back into an office. Because it's just lovely. As long as we have strong Wi-Fi signal, we can do whatever we need to do wherever we are.
I'm a believer, although unfortunately, I'm actually taking this call from my desk. I am the only person in the office because most people here leave by
Huh.
3, but I love being here by myself because I do not have to have a mask on. I can be loud and it's all about me. Uh,
I love it. I love
but,
it.
today is my last day in the office. I'm like, "I did my time. I'm out."
Oh,
So
wait. We need to hear all about that, but not yet. How are you feeling? And then we'll get
how am I
into it.
Yeah, how am I feeling? Um, I don't know if I told you I had this like health issue and I hired a nutritionist and like was trying to figure out like how do I sleep, how do I eat so I don't have these situations. I was like crazy anemic and had all this other stuff. And the vast majority of those symptoms are gone and I'm grateful for it. I have learned a
Great.
lot about what's good for me, what's not good for me physically. I am present to the ways that I have allowed stress to, like, fuck with them,
Right,
and,
right.
and and getting better at giving myself permission to slow down, especially when things feel crazy, so that I can make choices in response to who I wanna be, not in reaction to the expectations applied to me. That make
Mm,
sense?
absolutely.
And that distinction is I think it's most essential to where I'd like to be going, but I recognize that it takes work to remember that I said that,
Mhm.
much less remember I wanna live from that.
Absolutely. I mean, I met you where you're trying to break us out of expectations, so I totally get it. I wanted to talk about your experience as an educator during COVID, if there were any
Mhm.
grand plans that you had planned that you had to pivot. But I also wanted your personal experience because you're also a transformational coach. So how did that shape you during COVID and what's next?
Yeah, so I will yes. Okay, so let's start with the first. Is there a workout activity or a dance party happening near you? Are you in a bar? Do I need to be jealous?
I'm at a beach club. The Wi-Fi signal
Perfect.
is pretty strong. And since this is Jay in transit,
Good.
I figured I can have some background noise.
No, I am let's just be clear, I'm so with it. I just know that I'm in this situation where I'm like, I'm literally sitting in a cubicle and I have these images of like people in bright colors, with sand on the bottom of their feet, like making their way up to a bar and,
They are so
enjoying
bright.
everything.
I have two
Right,
friends
exactly.
in highlighter bikinis. That's how bright they are.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And so I'm just like, the question isn't how can I be down? The question is what's my schedule?
When?
Because I
Yes,
was
that's
talking
like
right. I was talking to a coworker just today about I was like, no, 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 no. I didn't use these words, but this was my intention. All the boundaries now. I was like, my job is to keep my head below level and to make sure that I'm on vacation quarterly. And, I'll do what you ask me to do, but I also am going to take the space to be and do who I need to be to have the experience of fulfillment, which relates to the conversation that you've asked me about, in that the number one thing that I got from the COVID experience, aside from the traditional conversation, the anxiety, concern about, who's coming for me, like the fear of the helicopters and fireworks that was going on, I got a lot more clarity on the distinction between like living and being alive, the
mm,
level of attention that I deserve, and then feeling responsible to give it to me, right?
wow.
Because I
Yeah.
got I got I got really present to like, if somebody asks me, "What do I want?" then I need to be real clear about the answer, not just in my career, not just in my finances, but like in my soul. Do I know what I want just for me because I'm breathing now? And it's a question that I'm always asking in this transformational coach world. And often I'm answering, but in compartments. And I think
Ah,
during COVID, I was like, fuck a compartment. Like, what about your whole life?
the whole life.
Like when we integrate, right, like the professional is personal love. And so like let's really center in this experience of you as a person. And and let's be with the stuff that you were running around busy ignoring because you
Right.
had to be here. You had to be there. And you had to look like this. And you had to look like that. You ain't got to do nothing literally but be black and die in this COVID mess. So what does that look like?
What does that
What does
look like
that
when we
really,
get
really look like?
over COVID, which it doesn't look like we're getting over it anytime soon?
Well, what, I'm not and so let's talk about you asked about pivots, right? So
Yes.
I was really like enjoying what I had created for myself. Like I understood sort of my natural rhythms in terms of like what times I like to get up and what times I like to be in bed and what foods made me feel happy. And I look, for a long time, you would have thought I was Dominican. I was making sancocho. I was making, mofongo. I was really, for whatever reason, these were the foods that mattered. And as a West Indian, a lot of those foods are aligned. And so I was like making old school meals, like not the way my mother did because she didn't cook, but like my grandma, right? And I was
Yes.
just like, wait a minute, like look at you, like figuring out what really works for you, figuring out what nourishment feels like. Like I would have a meal and I'd be like, "Ooh, that was good." Not because I wanted to sleep, but because I felt like awake and alive and excited. And so I had, and then, like you had invited me to that thing with what is it, JTW Fit for a while. And I had this whole like workout routine. Like I had extra kettlebells and a pull-up bar and like other people were talking about gaining weight during COVID. I was like fit and fine, which brought up
Yes.
other questions, but I digress. Anyway, then and then like the people at my job are like, we need you to go to a school. And I was like,
Food.
clutch the pearls I don't own. Go to a school? What you mean go to a school? Like where kids aren't wearing masks? Like go to a school and do what? Isn't there a principal there? What you want me to do? Like,
Yes, yes.
um,
But we have to
and
take a step back because
mhm.
we need to we I would love to hear about what life was in 2019 as you prepared for 2020 because this you weren't clutching pearls and doing, extra kettlebells before this. So what was your
No,
mindset before?
it was like it was, do that work. It was figure out what else you needed to do. You know, um, I think I was in this conversation about who do you want to work for, right? Whose agenda mattered. Because I had gotten to this place where I chose to work in the New York City Department of Education because I thought I was going to fulfill this like personal Don Quixote type, chasing windmills agenda, right? I was going to address issues of race in the system and like this really big thing. And I was at a place where I was like, if I'm really committed to those ideals, I'm not certain in the role that I'm sitting in that that's something I can manage. And
Right.
how am I going to create the experience of addressing those very, very personal, powerful, like moral obligations in this job? Because where I sat, it was a job. And I was like, I need to do something else. And so the answer I had come to was, oh, I'm going to do this life coaching thing. I got certified as a life coach. I had figured out, I built a website and was like, all right, so I'm just going to open those doors. And there's a lot of other work involved. It's not just about being technically proficient, but it is about building an audience. And right about the time where I was starting to do the work of building the audience, this COVID situation hit. And I was like, oh wait, well, I guess everything's on pause. Am I going to die? Someone going to put their knee in my neck, And so, so it was all of the existential questions and the doing that I had been prescribing to answer them kind of, I won't say got put on pause, but I just recognized that it was like looking at a symptom and not really being with, well, what is the set of conversations that I had been having with myself that had me think that all I needed to do was switch bosses. It wasn't about switching bosses. It was really about what is the way that I'm thinking about this? How is
Mhm.
the way that I'm thinking about this creating the hamster wheel? Not which hamster wheel do you wanna be on?
Oh, that's very
Because
interesting.
right, because I could work for myself and still behave the same way that I did when I was working for the DOE, and I was like, "Mm-mm, there's a bigger issue here than who you're working for, why you work. It's how are you defining living? It's what does it look like to love yourself?" I mean, I had money, I had clothes, I can take myself on vacations, but the way that I managed my money needed to shift. The way that I nourished myself, like not just what I chose to eat, but how I chose to eat, the care with which I set it up for myself. There were all of these other questions that I, was thinking about. People talk about like what is like reparenting yourself. And I'm
Right.
not gonna say that I reparented myself, but I'm gonna say that I looked at the messages that I had been operating in around what success was and who was equipped to judge whether or not I had been successful. Like I had had this conversation with my stepmother and she was like, "Oh, don't be a loser like your dad." And I was like, "Oh," and she actually she's a really like straight talking, she'll cut you in a minute and be like, "What did I hurt you?" kind of person. And so um and what she was coming from was like your dad had all this potential and was super charismatic and everybody will look at him and say he could do whatever he wanted, but he never really sat down and did what he wanted because he was so busy managing other people's expectations. And she had this other conversation about, well, you're a really effective principal, fuck the DOE, go be a principal. And I was like, but I'm not sure that I want to do that, not because I don't have the skills, not even because I wasn't good at it, but because of the reason I was doing it. If
Got
I
it.
was choosing to operate as a principal because I was trying to prove something to somebody, then I don't need to be there, right?
And was
If
that
I
the
was
reason that you were operating or wanted to be a principal because people expected you to be that?
I wouldn't say expected. I would say it meant that I was um in a place of influence that other people would assess as a place of influence, managing the issues I wanted to manage in the world. It actually was coming from, in my mind, a scarce place in that I needed a position in order to impact the things that matter to me. I don't hold that belief anymore. So, like, you could tell me superintendent, chancellor, whatever. I don't think that a position is what's going to have me impact things the way that I want to. I actually think that it's more important for me to create movements to empower people in multiple places, which is an entirely different idea about work, right, than the one I had before. It's no
Right.
longer about place, right? It's no
Mhm.
longer about, position. My notions of power are not rooted in a hierarchy. And so, like, when I let go of that, it was like, you could do what you really want from anywhere.
Right.
Hence, being on a beach in Antigua, having a meeting with people, who are, powerful in my system, doing my boss a favor. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like I have an entirely different idea about what authority looks like now, what impact looks like now. And so in that sense, I'm experiencing the freedom that I talked about, but because I had to be clearer about what actually feeds me,
Mm.
fuels me. Somebody was like, "So and so left their job. Do you want it?" And I was like, "No," because I have a different idea about how I want to spend my time and what I want to give my energy to. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like, so for example, I came into the system with the idea that I wanted to do profound and impactful things about issues of race.
Yeah.
And while I think I have great conversations with people at my level and above my level about those things, it's nothing compared to being a subcontractor on a project where I'm consulting with the leadership of a school district about how to do that. Do you understand? So I got paid more money for my opinion on this thing that I'm passionate about and got to impact an entire system at a level that I don't have instant access to as an outsider. I want to do
Mm.
that. I wanna do that because you paid me for my opinion, so I get to say what I wanna say. In this
Ri
institution, I gotta dip and dive through different
You gotta be something.
hierarchical levels.
Right, you gotta get
Yeah, I'm not
approval,
trying
it's
to
like
do
a
that
wait
anymore.
gotta wait approval, you gotta wait and
I'm not trying
see.
to. Correct. And I want, so the number one thing that became so clear for me, was that I want my own approval, right? I want my own approval. I want to be real clear about what is the standard for my approval because it's not cash and it's not like I've been clearing out my desk and I found, how people used to give each other cards to be like, oh, this is who I am, or like, look. And I looked at this piece of paper and I was like, "You know what that is? A piece of paper." Um, and like those designations, they do not matter to me in the way that they used to, and I'm clear that my authority rests in my ability to find the place where I am satisfied and my impact is experienced as I want it to be, not as somebody has evaluated it to be. I don't care what you think. I lost you. It's okay. My impact is assessed based on my sense of what I want to see happen in the world, not your sense of whether or not I did it right. That is important. Right.
How is that shaping this as you go into this year? Or are you saying that you are not going to be in the same quote unquote position with DOE?
I can't be in the same position with the DOE because my ego is not rested in it anymore. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yes.
I'm here. So my favorite thing to say is I'm here till I'm not here.
Yes, I get detail.
And I'm right. I mean, it's I had a moment in this job where I was literally like, I would say to the person I worked with, I want to do this. And they'd be like, go ahead. I want to do that. And they'd be like, go ahead. And so I again feel like I'm in a position where I can, create my role as long as I'm clear with you about how it makes you look good and meets, the expectations, which is just about rationalizing. I'm good at that. But I think the other
Mhm.
thing is that I feel empowered to um, create work for myself, not just inside my job. Like I was socialized by West Indian parents who had multiple jobs and they knew they were working because they were working for somebody. I would say that what I am evolving into is someone who is is working because she created a project or she networked for a role, a responsibility, a task that aligns with her, like, personal development. Does that make sense? Like, I'm like, I wanna do that project because that project supports me in feeling that I have lived into my mission, or, I wanna take this client because this client is working in and on things that I wanna see improved in the world.
Right.
I'm only gonna coach people, who are doing this set of things or up to these things in the world because that amplifies my commitment to X, right? I really do believe that I can select my work and it's not about who writes my paycheck. How is it affecting my students? my students are all over the place. They're not just
Yeah.
young people in schools. I can start
Right.
there.
Okay.
So for example, like I'm creating an experience for my friends and their children. It's literally called See and Be Seen, and the
Mm,
invitation is to create an opportunity for parents to be with their kids. Um, not over their kids,
I
right?
love
Right. So,
that.
yeah, and so, like I wanted that to happen. So I'm creating the experience. And so it's an opportunity for, it's basically like a safe space for kids to express things to their parents and parents to be heard by their children. And so like they're gonna design portraits of how I feel around you. What's the experience of having you in my life? And then there's gonna be like a mini yoga class so people can talk about like, you know, how they feel in their bodies and and just also to just stretch and have some fun. And then there's going to be like dress up for portraits, and then there's going to be like a love language kind of graffiti board. And so it's just 3 hours, but for parents and kids to see each other, not their representatives. And so like
Oh,
those people are all my students, and it's happening because I wanted it. It's also happening because I wrote a children's book about how kids see parents when they're doing for
wow.
themselves, and it's going to allow me to get pictures that will help me create the illustrations for the children's book I wrote. Because I think that particularly if you're a brown person, these notions of modeling self-care, they don't exist, and I would like for the children to affirm them by responding, right, with their own humanity. So there's now a broader community of people who understand the value. And then maybe they'll create that experience or an experience like it for themselves and their kids on their own.
You
And
uh, I would say that
yeah,
your own lived experience as a child back in the day also lent a lot of richness to the experiences you're creating now.
that's fair. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. All of the moments as a principal where people are like, you got kids? Then who are you to talk to me?
Experience.
That my life, our lives, right, have always been our like credential for sharing. So
Mm.
I feel empowered to, and I think I wrote an Instagram post about this today about like not being stingy with your healing to share because there's even if it's only one heart that's influenced, that heart matters. So I feel significantly more empowered to offer because I am aware of the freedom that comes with living into the new awareness. And so if it happened to me, it's not just for me; it's in me for others.
Amen. Amen. I agree.
Well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the audience. It does empower me to listen to myself for lessons, that will empower me and others. And I think we deserve it. I think we deserve all the freedom, all the power, all the glory that comes with enduring this human thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I think sometimes we forget that.
Now
Oh.
that you get it, aside from the experiences that you are creating for parent and child to see each other and experience each other, what's next on your agenda? Your plate, your journey, really, because it's not an agenda that seems to change, but what's next in your journey?
Yeah, I think one thing I'm very clear about is that and we've talked about like relationships before, but I'm
Mhm.
very present to like I can bring a me to relationships that's unapologetic in a way that I didn't know I wasn't being unapologetic in before. And I'm speaking to you as someone who is always declaring that they're outrageous, and so I'm like, ooh, what's next? Like I've already walked the streets of another country in my underwear. So what's next? Um, and I think that I'm viewing that with excitement and not with the what do I have to strategically create so there's no blowback. Like I don't care about the blowback because I
Wow. Wow.
appreciate that creation isn't isn't appreciated by everyone, and everyone's not my audience. I am. So being at the center in that way, I think allows me to curate a life experience um that allows me to, find the parts of me that I forgot. What's that song? Like, don't think that I forgot. And so it's
Yes.
not bitch better have my money.
Yes.
Bitch is reaching for her freedom. And it's cool because, the curiosity that kids have, that allows them to fall, get up, and keep it moving. I feel like
Mhm.
I have that in intimate places that I used to, like, judge myself as not enough in. Like, I think that I am, open about living in another country and another country after that and another country after that,
Yeah.
and, I am open about creating intimacy, and when I say that, I'm not just talking about relationships with men,
Right.
and I used to just talk about relationships with black men, but I think that I'm just kinda like, "Let me just see what comes," because, waiting for something to look a certain way hasn't worked.
Wow. Yes, yes.
So, and maybe I'm not being fair to myself. I don't know, we'll see. And I think that I like, as I'm most familiar with these issues in my career, I think that I'm open to my career moving in ways that I used to judge as, sideways or slow, or I'm not thinking about like my resume, I'm thinking about my impact, right?
Mm.
So I'm not
Mhm.
I'm not building a work life based on have I constructed a narrative that will allow somebody to hire me? Nah, pause.
Right.
I'm thinking about have I have I have I created a set of experiences with my skills and talent that is moving the world in the direction that I feel the word is not confident empowered in that I feel
Mhm.
empowered in, and that's different. Like I am my audience in a way that I've never been before, and COVID was crazy, but I think personally COVID was the jump off. It allowed me to listen to myself without concern for anybody else's pleasure, power, or purpose but mine.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna
And
have
I
to
don't
listen to this because I'm dropping some gems and I'm not sitting here with any notes.
you absolutely you are absolutely dropping the gems, and don't you worry. I will make I hope my listeners are taking notes because these are invaluable gems, and I appreciate you so much for not only sharing, but also being vulnerable in your sharing.
Yeah, that's another one of those commitments I keep making, and as it deepens, sometimes I'll be like, you sure? You not Brene Brown. You sure this is where you want to take this conversation?" And it's kinda like,
Ah,
"Well, we trying to learn. If you're really listening to learn, like your Instagram hashtag says, you should listen.
yes.
Stop censoring yourself." And I think that that's
But we could use a lot more faces than Brene Brown, not to, downgrade a sister, but like,
yeah, it's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
we need to hear more voices. We need to hear from people who look like us. And you
Absolutely. I'd
are
be daring
a
to lead
wonderful
too.
example.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Heather,
Don't let my diction fool you.
right. I can't thank you enough. And I want to tell my audience, or at least hear them hear from you, where we can find you if they want to keep up.
So I'm on Instagram at Heather Loyal, like, and it's pronounced Loyal, but it's spelled Loile. My parents were hooked on phonics, whatever.
I love it every
And
time I see it. So
and yeah, and I'm on Facebook as well. I do have a coaching practice, and you can find that it's Heather Loyal Loile Lawrence um, at Squarespace. Yeah, I'm growing. We all get to grow, and I'm really excited about partnering with people. My friends, professionals, people in the world on making this a space where I'm not the only one empowered, but we all are, especially brown folks. Absolutely.
Wow. What a powerful, powerful conversation. Heather, thank you so, so much. I feel like we never left. What an episode that is so timeless. I literally feel as if I am still living those lessons and can apply those as I go into 2026, which is exactly what I plan to do. But for my Jane Transit audience, if any of this resonated with you, please, please, please share.
like, rate, and be sure to come back for our next episode because I will be dropping another one of our lost files before I unveil our new content. Thanks so much and see you on the other side.